The concept of RFP was actually developed at a female technician roundtable up in the New England states. And in fact, earlier today, I just did a interview with one of those female technicians, and the video is now live on my YouTube channel. But what the Female Technician Roundtable has been doing over the past several months, in fact, I think it's close to 2 years, is they have been meeting to basically discuss issues surrounding females coming into the workforce as technicians, and then challenges that they face, really, whether it's at the dealer or manufacturer level or whatever. And so about a year ago, they sent me a list of items and issues that they were dealing with. And of course, at that time, I was still with Toyota. And I looked through the list of items and actually went up and met with the Female Technician Roundtable. And I told them, I said, as I'm looking through this list of items, I said, I'm finding very little that's specific to females. This is more of a lack of respect for people in general. And there was a consensus among the group that is accurate. There was one particular thing that was pointed out that I would have to say, okay, that would be unique to just being a female technician. But the rest of it really applied to anyone who is coming into the workforce. And it really deals with the basic things that we face every day, that we want to be successful in our career. We want to be able to provide for our families. We want to be able to have an opportunity to go to work, not be harassed, not face challenges that are unreasonable. So what I have here in the presentation is RFP at a very high level, and I'll share a little bit of what we do as we work with dealers to do consulting. So the first thing that we want to look at is, what is our purpose? Our underlying purpose behind RFP is to develop a team environment which retains and attracts highly skilled and dedicated workforce. Now, the reason I put the word retain in front of attract is not because I want to just be odd or weird. It's because, from my perspective, if we do not build a good retention system in our technician workforce, we're wasting our time to do recruiting. In fact, recent studies that I have been doing an extensive amount of research is that across the industry, we're somewhere between 45 to 55% attrition just within the first year. And that varies by brand. It also varies by location. So you will find some locations that are lower, and then some locations that are very high, and the same is true with brands. So when we look at why people are leaving and actually doing interviews with technicians that have left a dealership or left the industry completely, what I'm hearing over and over is it's not necessarily the work they enjoy. The work is something that they fully expected, but it's the environment. Sometimes the environment includes something that came from management, could be something that is coming from their fellow workers. The other issue that rises to the surface is a lack of a well-defined career pathway. So that's the problem. And so we're trying to address that and create a team environment. So when I look at, you'll have to pardon me, for some reason my screen's not changing. Oops. Whoops. There we go. When we look at what are the impediments to success in the workplace, it really falls into two buckets. One, it could be something that's illegal, and RFP Workplace Principles does not deal with addressing illegal activities. If there's sexual harassment, if there's things that are happening that crosses that line legally, that's why companies have HR. That's why they're law enforcement individuals. So we have no interest in dealing with illegal activities. What we're focused on is what I call the uninviting circumstances. And the way I explain this is if you're running a race, and I run half marathons, and I've ran one marathon. If you get a grain of sand in your shoe, if you don't stop and deal with it, that's going to destroy your race. And it's an uninviting circumstance. And what happens over time is in the workplace, you get a quote unquote grain of sand in the shoe, and it begins to irritate. And before it's grown to a problem that a person feels like that they can't continue to work at that location. So everything that you're going to see are things to address uninviting circumstances. And before we go into the next slide, I do want to share how we differentiate ourselves from other consulting organizations. Most consulting organizations work solely with management. They may do management training, they may do management coaching, they may help management build out business strategies. I am not an expert in business strategies for a service department. Where my focus is to help shore up a good work environment for all individuals, whether it's the management team or the technicians or employees on the floor. So when we look at productivity in relation to workplace environment, there's a couple of studies out there that I have done a tremendous amount of research going through. One was actually done by Forbes, and the other was done by Oxford University. Of course, Oxford is in England, so their work environments, their workplaces are a little different than that of the United States. However, the study that Oxford conducted, I consider that to be a better resource for what the productivity losses or gains are regarding the environment in which somebody works. So if you take the 0 point, that's someone coming into the workplace with a specific skill. If it is an unpleasant environment, Oxford University says that it can negatively impact the productivity by negative 12%. Conversely, if it's a pleasant work environment, someone with the very same skills can actually have up to 10% positive productivity just by the workplace being pleasant. So we see a 22% spread. Now, Forbes, their spread is much wider. They say that an unpleasant work environment could impact someone negatively up to negative 23%. Their span is actually closer to about 30% that you could go either way. Regardless of that, we do know that if you go to work and there are unpleasant situations, that's going to probably affect your productivity. And while we do not have solid data yet on dealers that have implemented any of our processes or our procedures to show what they can actually gain by going with RFP, we are satisfied that there would be a significant increase in productivity by addressing some of this. So who it involves, we have everyone from the owner on down that it really involves. There has to be a culture change really from the executive level going down through parts and service management, parts and service personnel. And then we identify someone who is what I call an RFP champion. An RFP champion is someone that has a team mentality, is there at work to help people, encourage people, and try to promote a good workplace culture. It's not a quote unquote paid position. It's something that someone would assume, such as a shop foreman, could be a service manager, could be just a technician. But it needs to be someone that really wants to see everyone work together as a team and coalesce around a team atmosphere. So we have pieces for each of the individuals that you see listed here. What I'm going to do is share specifically what we have for the service and parts management, as well as the service and parts personnel. So the first thing that we do is a management training. And when we first launched this, we're going to do this in live settings. What we have heard via feedback is that dealers are more interested if we could conduct the management training in an online or virtual format. So just this past Monday, we launched a virtual class for individuals to attend. They could sign up online and log into the class. There's 2 sessions per subject area, and each subject area is 1 hour. And so there's a total of 8 different segments, and that carries on over the course of a month. So it's 1 hour out of your day, a couple of days a week, and we go through all of these topics in depth and how to build this out in the dealership. So looking at these topics specifically, which, by the way, the next management training that I have scheduled will not start until September. However, if there was significant demand for management training again in the summer, I could possibly launch another one in July. So just keep that in mind, and you can reach out to me if you would like to be on a waiting list for that. So seek to understand. What does that even mean? One of the things that the Female Technician Roundtable shared with me is that they feel like that they are not understood in their dealership. They feel like that a lot of times management doesn't understand where they're coming from, and that by making just some minor adjustments or even understanding where they're coming from could make all the difference in the world for them. So an example that I give that was given to me was a lady had a couple of children. She is a technician. The daycare that her children went to did not open till 8 a.m., but she needed to be at work at 8 a.m. So being that she can't be in 2 places at once, it forced her to be a few minutes late to work each day. By the management understanding that, they're able to make some adjustments to her work schedule so that she's not having to rush in frantically and always be a few minutes late to work. So what we're encouraging the management to do is to build a structure where they have input from the team members so that they can understand what that team member is facing on a personal level. If it's a very large dealership where you've got maybe 50 to 100 technicians, you're going to have layers to actually be able to do that. There's a saying in the industry, the larger you get, the smaller you have to get. And if you're going to retain technicians in the industry, that is something that a dealership must be able to do. So we walk through how that process works, how you identify people to help with that process, but yet not slow down the order of business. And one of the things that we focus very heavily on is not listening to respond, but how do you listen to understand? How do you ask questions so that it doesn't put the person on defensive? Or how do you ask questions so that you're not prying into their business, but yet you're letting that individual know that you care, and that if there is something within your power or within reason, that you will try to be supportive. And then an open feedback forum. This is critical. In fact, in a recent interview that I did with a technician, this was something that came up. This particular technician actually told me that the technician had some questions about their pay and some compensation. But the technician told me, said, I'm afraid to even ask. That should not be. A person should be able to have questions, be able to have discussions with the appropriate people without it being combative or without it being perceived as combative. So we work on a process to build an open feedback forum, something where management can know what the concerns are of the individuals on the floor, so to speak, without them having to worry about retribution or something of that nature. And then clear communication. One of the things that I hear over and over from technicians is there's a lack of understanding of what the job skills requirement is. So you can see a posting for a lube tech or a line level tech or an A tech or something like that. But what does that even mean? What do I need to be able to do as a technician? What is the feedback regarding my performance? So clear communication for all of these is extremely important. One of the things that I share is something that I created several years ago that helps individuals that were working under me to build out a goals document so that we would have something that we could talk about at each of their performance evaluations. And we could do periodic check-ins, and I could give feedback on how they were performing or what they needed to do to perform better or maybe focus in even a different area. And then, of course, celebrating accomplishments. A lot of times, technicians, they will accomplish something, but they feel like that there's very little recognition of that. So those are things that we cover in clear communication. The next area that we focus, and this one actually gets very deep into the mud, so to speak, on what does a career look like for a technician from day one all the way through 20 years. So before we actually contract with a dealership, one of the things that we do is we do a dealer culture health assessment. And that's where we survey all of the technicians in the service department, all of the parts personnel, all of the service advisors. And what we're looking for are where are the issues in that particular dealership. One of the questions that we ask is, how many years have you been at this dealership? And if the person says, well, I've been at this dealership less than 5 years, the next question that will pop up is, how many years do you plan on staying at this dealership? If the answer is between 1 to 5 years, they will get a follow-up question. How many additional years would you consider staying at this dealership if you had a 20-year career plan? What we're looking for is for someone to say, well, I would have only stayed 1 to 5 years under my current condition, but if I had a 20-year plan, I would stay 15 to 20 years. If we see that pop up, then we know that we need to start working on a career plan for that dealership. And what I can tell you is early results are indicating this is something that technicians are looking for. What does stability look like? What does growth look like? So each of these phases from day one through the first year has a specific focus. So the first year is onboarding. The years 1 through 5 are what we call growing. That's where someone is expanding and growing their talents, their knowledge, their ability. Years 5 through 10 are what we call the seasoning years. And during those years, the individuals actually has made it to maybe a master level or a certified level or expert level, and they're able to produce a tremendous amount of work, but it's a seasoning time for them. Then years 10 through 15 are what we call the leading years. That's where someone should be eligible to move into some type of leadership position. It may or may not be a shop foreman. It may or may not be a team leader. But there are other opportunities for leading. For example, being a lead at a local high school or post-secondary advisory. So being a representative for a specific dealer on that advisory board, having the responsibility of what to communicate to that school, and then also having the responsibility of communicating back to the management team at the dealership what activities or what things were going on at the school. This makes them a lead, and this has a tendency to create some stability. It gives them some ownership, and it makes them part of the leadership team at that dealership. Years 15 through 20 are what we call the mentoring years. And that's not just mentoring technicians, but someone that has been at the dealership 15 to 20 years, mentoring anyone that comes into the dealership to make them feel part of the team, part of the dealership family, and ultimately part of the culture. So we assist in mapping this out for the dealership. And then empowering leadership. This is a topic that is very deep, but it also is very important to getting buy-in and sustainability from those that have been in the dealership, say 10 years or more. Empowering leadership basically is broken down like this. If someone has been at the dealership, say 10 years, and you give them some authority, now that once again has them bought in that they are part of the organization at a higher level. The example that I give of this, when I was a technician, I'd been a technician about 12 years. The general manager called me to the conference room along with about 8 other individuals. And he went around and handed us all a $50 bill. I remember looking at the $50 bill and then looking at the person beside me and wondering, okay, what did we do to deserve the $50 bill? Well, the general manager was quick to explain that the $50 bill was not for us. It was actually a token of our authority. What we had the authority to do was once a month, we could make a difference in a customer's experience at that dealership up to $50. So an example that I like to share, a lady was on the service drive and she was needing new tires. I walked up there, I saw that she looked rather distraught. I was able to walk up to her and say, ma'am, I said, is there something that I can do to help you? And she said, well, I found out I need new tires on my car. She said, I am not really at a point where I can afford it this month. And I said, well, what if they took $50 off of your bill? Would that make a difference? And she looked at me, her eyes sort of lit up, and she said, do you think you could get them to do that? And I said, yeah, I think so. She said, oh, that would make a world of difference. I remember walking over to the service advisor with her, and I told the service advisor, I said, I need you to apply $50 to my account. And he, of course, knew what I was talking about. He took the $50 off. She was able to buy the tires that she needed and walked out of there a very happy and satisfied customer. Those are the kind of things that can be done. It may not be $50. It may be something else, or it may even be more than $50. But it's empowering someone. It's giving them some authority to make a difference on behalf of that dealership. And then results oriented, turning things around and helping the team to become more results oriented for training, for the number of hours that you're targeting for each month, for the first strike time scores, and then for any kind of outstanding service. And the outstanding service is something that I go into extensively, explaining how to build that and actually have something of substance in that area. So this is the management training. All of these are very high level topics. We get very deep into the weeds. I have resources that I can actually provide so that it can help the service manager, service director, whoever, to be able to build this out for his or her dealership. Then the team training cannot start until after the management training has been concluded. The reason for that, we want the management team fully bought into changing their culture and supporting the team as they go through their portion of it. And this is really where RFP stands apart from all other consulting organizations. This is where we work with the team one-on-one in monthly meetings to cover topics that you see there, the topics 1 through 7. This is a 1-year program. Some of these topics actually take more than 1 month to cover, but we go through everything from respect for the individual, whether that's understanding what a individual's personal space entails, to respecting someone based on what we say or what we do to them. And by the way, this is just my perspective. If someone has the proper respect for the individual, we will not have things like what I had a female technician share with me almost a year ago. She said that she was bent over the hood of a car, working on the car, and someone came by and slapped her on the backside while she was working on the car. That is violating that person's personal space. If that person had respect for the personal space, that individual would have never gone so far to have made the physical contact in the way that they did. So those are things that we cover in respect for the individual, letting people know that we're all coming to work for some basic reasons. Those reasons being we want to provide for ourselves and for our dependents or our significant others. We want to be successful in those workplaces. We need food, shelter, acceptance. So we cover all of those things in the respect for the individual. And then we talk about the employee value, what each employee brings to the table. And in fact, in the video I did this morning, or interview, I should say, that I did this morning, I talk about the value of each employee, and the person that I was talking to actually on her own shared that, hey, there's things that I can't do that other technicians assist me with. And she said, the same way there are things that they struggle with that I help them with. So everybody brings value to the table. Just because we all can't do the same level of task or the same level of skill areas doesn't mean that our value changes. So helping the employees to understand that, also helping management to know how to distribute work properly and to show proper value to the employee is the purpose of this. And then success in the workplace. So we talk about individuals actually being professional technicians and what that success looks like, and trying to elevate the place of a technician. Then we get into professional communication. So how do we talk to each other? A lot of times, trips to HR start as a result of someone saying something and someone else either misinterprets what's been said, or that what has been said is twisted, or maybe what is said initially the person didn't think through before they said. So we go through, how do you have professional communication? And so how do you stop and think about what you're going to say so that you meet your end objective? If your objective is to upset someone, you don't have to put a lot of thought into it. You can offend someone very easily. But if your objective is to change a situation to make it better for all, how do you actually communicate that without offending someone, without someone feeling left out or someone feeling pointed out? So that's what professional communication covers. And I can tell you, as a technician, there was never one time that a class ever dealt with, how do I talk to my fellow technicians? Then we get into what I call exemplary behaviors. Exemplary behaviors are the ways that I conduct myself anytime I'm in uniform, whether that's in the dealership or out of the dealership. There's going to be a way that I carry myself, I conduct myself, and it all ties back to that professional image. And then we build out commitment and accountability. And on the next slide, I'm going to share a little bit about what that commitment and accountability looks like. But what we're wanting everyone to do is to commit to being professional and respecting others, and being willing to be accountable if they make a mistake. And we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to screw up from time to time. But what we have to do is be willing to be accountable and go back and retrace our steps and correct that and take ownership of it. And then the last thing that we cover is training and development. A lot of times we look at ongoing training as sort of a necessary evil. I've heard technicians say, oh my, I've got to go to training again. I hate going to training because I lose money. But what they don't realize is if they go to training with an open mind and they try to apply what they've learned in training, it's going to help them make more money on down the line. So we cover the importance of training and development and how to be successful moving forward. Then when I talk about commitment, what you see on the screen now, this is just an example. I do not share this with the team, but here are the items that I'm looking for that they build in a commitment statement. So I work with the teams, they're the technicians, I should say, to actually build this out. And once it's built out and everyone gives a thumbs up on it, then everyone signs a commitment form. Now, there's nothing legally binding about this, but what it does is it lets everyone know that, hey, I am committed to having open, clear, and respectful conversations. It's just a statement that says, this is something that I want to do. This is something that I'm willing to do, and I'm committed to this. So that is the commitment statement that is developed. And then after that, we have what we call an RFP banner. It has the RFP logo on it. But what we do is we have each team member sign this banner. And we put it in a prominent place so that they can see it every day. They're reminded of this commitment. If we do this as just a one and done, if it's just a half-hour e-learning that's done, or we just do as a one-day class or something like that, in a week or two, it's going to be forgotten and we'll all go back to our old ways. What we want to do is change that culture. We want to change that environment. Make it a place where people want to come to work and where people want to apply to be employed there. So the RFP banner, like I said, is displayed in a prominent location. Now, this is where at the 6-month point, we would start supporting with recruiting activities. We don't want to start recruiting until the management has gone through their training and the service department has at least gone through 6 months of their training. So we provide both remote and in-person support, whether that's building presentations and marketing, supporting recruiting events, things of that nature. But what we want to do is we want to recruit for a specific role with required skills identified with that career roadmap ready to hand that prospective technician. And this recruiting is all done at high schools and colleges. We're not out recruiting at another OE. We're not recruiting in an independent shop. One of the things that I'm adamantly opposed to is doing what I call build a revolving door, where I'm pulling a technician from Ford just to have them go back to Toyota and then somebody from GM to go to Honda or whatever. That never works. People typically go back to where they feel most comfortable. So this recruiting specifically is focused on entry-level technicians. Then we require the applicant to perform a skills evaluation so that the dealership management knows the skill level of this individual coming in. We support things such as skills competitions, and we also support applicants doing a job shadow. This is very important. When I did recruiting, when I was in T10, one of the things that I always said was I'm looking for what I call 2 thumbs up. That's where both the prospective employee and the dealership management both give a thumbs up and say, yes, I believe this technician would be a good fit for my dealership. And the technician saying, you know what, I think I would love working here and I'm willing to put everything into being the best employee that I can possibly be. So this is rethinking recruiting. And like I said, that would not, dealership would not be eligible to start that process until the 6-month point. We have dealership requirements that we would go through with the individual dealership. And these are things that in some cases the dealer might have to work on to develop. And then one of the things that we want to do is recognize that dealer. We want the customers to know what it means to be an RFP dealer. They're not only showing respect for their employees, they're also showing respect for the customer. Because if the employees are working together as a team, when someone is struggling with something on the vehicle, they're not just left out there on their own. At the end of the day, the customer is the one that pays the bill for that. And sometimes that bill is not paid in dollars and cents. They're paying the price in that they're doing without their car much longer than what maybe they would need to. Or in some cases, the repair was not done properly, or maybe it was misdiagnosed. If we take a team approach, we work together on something, that customer in the end is the great beneficiary of this. So we want the customers to know what RFP is. And in the videos I do that are on YouTube, I talk quite a bit about the customer. And RFP is focused on all people. It's not focused on one segment of the industry. It's not just focused on the technician, but it's for all people, regardless of gender, background, race, ethnicity. It doesn't matter. We want respect for all. So what we provide a support, such as the dealer culture health assessment that I mentioned. We do training support, both on-site as well as virtual. We provide all the course materials. We provide recruiting support, brochures for marketing and technician recruiting. We provide phone support for the RFP champion, and as well as plaques and banners, and then also dealer recognition. So those are the things that are covered with RFP. And that is the end of my presentation. And I'm going to open it up if there are any questions.